Recently, in the world, more and more often there has been talk of a possible beginning of the Third World War. Due to the global tense situation, major superpowers increase their troops and weapons every year. In this video, I will talk about 8 countries that can participate in the Third World War. Number 8 goes to India and Pakistan. Today, it is one of the active territories on the planet. The military confrontation between them began with the fact that both countries, after the collapse of British Empire, have some territorial claims against each other, especially the state of Jammu and Kashmir. Although India was neutral in most conflicts, it could be a catalyst for World War III. India and Pakistan have been at war for 4 times since 1947. And until now, they have repeatedly clashed with each other. The Indo-Pakistani conflict at the beginning of the 21st century escalated because both sides developed their own nuclear weapons and are part of the so-called nuclear club and actively building a military power. Every year, India is expanding its army and modernizing military equipment. In this case, Pakistan has no choice but to purchase new military equipment and improve nuclear weapons to protect itself in case of war with India. After conflicts with India, the former Pakistani Foreign Minister Zulfikar Ali said, "If India creates its own atomic bomb, then we will have to do it, even if for this we have to sit on bread and water or even starve to death. The Christians, the Jews, and now also the Hindus have the bomb. Why don't Muslims get their own?" Number 7 goes to Israel. A similar situation is developing around the Arab-Israeli conflict. At the beginning of the 21st century, the main point of tension in the world are on the borders between Israel and Palestine. The United States has an ally with Israel, and the Arab states traditionally buy weapons from Russia, with the exception of Egypt, which is actively cooperating with the United States and the European Union in the military technical sides. And if Arab-Israeli conflicts develop to the level of war, a direct or indirect confrontation may arise between the strongest powers, the United States and Russia. Israel's strategic relation with the United States guarantee US participation in any serious Middle East conflict, and with such a company, any local conflict in this region could escalate into a Third World War. Everyone has their own personal opinion about the conflict between Israel and Palestine. Who do you support in this conflict? Write in the comment. There will be also similar video in my channel where I will talk about this conflict in more detail. Further, we have Iran. In the Western mass media, the regime of this country is displayed as very aggressive and uncontrolled. They say this country is on the verge of a war in the Middle East. Iran seeks to occupy a leading role both among Muslim countries and among other world powers. And as we mentioned earlier, any conflict in the Middle East can easily drag the United States. But Iran maintains an alliance with Russia and China, and on the contrary, wants to weaken the US position in the Middle East. The main cause of the tension is discrimination against the Shiite minority in Saudi Arabia. 6th place is North Korea, which every year threatens the United States and South Korea. They possess nuclear weapons, hydrogen bombs, and is unlikely to joke about this. North Korea also has strong ties with Russia and China, which have supported North Korea earlier and are still supporting. North Korea never maintains diplomatic relations with the United States and remains one of the most unpleasant and persistent problems of US foreign policy after the end of the Cold War. North Korea is a closed country and especially does not advertise its military achievements. To decide to strike North Korea, the United States lacks from a guarantee of Russian non-interference in the conflict. Next we have Turkey. During the civil war in Syria, this country shot down an unmanned aircraft which belonged to Russia, as well as the Russian Su-24. Took a definite step towards the Third World War, thus began a crisis in relation of two countries. But in the middle of 2016, both countries restored economic and military interaction. Turkey is a member of NATO And if war begins against Russia, according to the country's charter, NATO members are obliged to come to each other's aid, in which case Russia has no chance but to fight against Turkey and its allies. Let's not forget about China, as our number 3 is China, because it also adheres to its strategy and will fight against the United States, which supports Taiwan. The military budget of China in 2019 was 250 billion. This figure in nominal terms is 4 times more than Russian one. Over the past 20 years, China has increased its military spending 10 times. This says that China is preparing for something. They have the largest army of 2 million soldiers and officers and 7,000 tanks. Currently, the United States and China are experiencing the most difficult and sensitive stage in relations since their establishment. Their further development will determine the future of two countries and the whole world. In second place, we have Russia. After the end of the Cold War and the collapse of the USSR, relations between the United States and Russia were stable. President Boris Yeltsin and US President Clinton established warm relations that brought together two former opponents. Vladimir Putin also maintained this relation with George Bush, but at the moment the events that occur in the Middle East and Ukraine make these two superpowers enemies. Recent events in the Donbass and the aggravation of the conflict between Russia and Ukraine have provoked rumors that the Third World War is already began, and there is a fierce debate on the internet about who will be the victory. Russia is the second largest military exporter in the world and the second largest exporter of the military equipment and weapons. In the first place is the United States. If there is a war, then one of its obligatory participants is Russia. Another participant and the first place of our top is the United States. If all major world states are drawn into this war, the entire European Union will take the US side, and Iran, China, and India will support Russia. Whenever there is a conflict anywhere in the world, the United States will take an active part in it. They have hundreds of military bases almost all countries of the world, and over the past 20 years they fought as many as 9 times. This is the fight against terrorism in Afghanistan, in the African part, in northern Pakistan, Iraq, Yemen, Libya, Syria, and so on. There is also a rumor that USA provoked a conflict between Ukraine and Russia with the aim of weakening the enemy and drawing them into a war with the Western Europe. The main cause of the global conflict, analysts call a decrease in energy reserves. According to some experts, the US economy is on the verge of bankruptcy, and in order to rise, it needs to seize new raw material bases. According to the expert's speech, this conflict will unleash the Third World War and lead to the complete disappearance of some race. If the war begins, South America and Africa will remain on the sidelines, but such regions as Eastern Europe, the Baltic states, the Balkans, Indochina, East Asia, the Middle East, and the Pacific region will definitely become a theater of operations. Einstein once said, "I don't know what weapons a person will wage the Third World War, but the fourth will be with a stick and a stone." There is a hope that a full-scale global war can be avoided, since the risks and consequences that it entails are obvious to everyone. Major world powers with nuclear potential are a kind of a guarantor of peace on Earth. Only a madman, knowing what nuclear weapons are capable of, can unleash a world conflict that will lead to disappearance of at least 90% of the world's population. The catastrophes at nuclear power plants have clearly demonstrated what the atom is capable of. Despite the ominous predictions and aggravation of conflicts on the world stage, it is hardly worth expecting the start of a Third World War on this side. That is all, friends. The video has come to the end. Today you have learned about 8 countries that will possibly could start the Third World War. If you have your personal opinion on this matter or know any other potential dangerous countries, write in the comments. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe to the channel. Good luck and see you soon.